Now we're on.
Welcome to the Bullsheet. Okay. Are you ready? Can I do the lead in?
Sure.
Welcome, everyone, listeners, fans, detractors. I am Chase Wilson, your host of the Bullsheet, where we talk all things politics, sports, and things that make you go, ew. Here with me today, I have my co-host, Joel Z. Williams. How are you today, Joel?
I'm doing fine. Thank you for having me on. I'm really happy to be here.
So, in our first episode, we're going to talk about a lot of stuff today. We've covered a lot of ground already this morning, just you and I, and I think we're going to lead off with North Korea and
the Sony hack.
Say what? So, at what point is cybercrime the biggest concern that faces this country?
You know, I've said it for a long time. North Korea, we've known, has intermediate range nuclear weapons, ballistic cruise missiles. So every time they're getting ready to launch a new one, it's always a game that the intelligence people play. How far will it go? Will it make it out of the South China Sea? Will it make it to Guam? But it's always been a question of could they reach the United States? And I think this is a game changer because for the first time it shows that if they can't get us with hardware, they can get us with this new technology. And my whole issue with this is I think it's way sophisticated.
Well, okay, this all started when Seth Rogen and James Franco decided to make this movie, a satire-filled comedy about their loyal leader, Kim Jong-un.
The interview.
Were you going to go see it?
I would, but here's the deal: is they chickened out. They canceled all the showing. And is this a marketing ploy?
That's what the first thing I thought of is like, what better thing for them to do is like, oh my gosh, we've got to cancel it, and then come about the third week of January.
Supply and demand 101.
The movie that North Korea tried to stop.
Mm-hmm.
But there's these threats on U.S. Movie theaters.
Yes, I think from a legal aspect, you've been warned, that you've been put on notice. If you are Sony, do you have some exposure there? If 20 people get gunned down and
I think Sony's looking at this as more than just a money thing. I think they're you got to think of it this way: their entire company, personal emails that they'd sent on their professional accounts and stuff, it's all been exposed.
Mm-hmm. I forgot the Sony CEO here in America, Sabin, I think it's her name. I can't remember. She's coming under fire because they're saying that they think it might have been an inside job, that it took somebody with a high IT password, systems administrator or somebody like that.
Well, they're now saying, we're looking here at CNN.com, and FBI has officially named North Korea as the Sony hacker,
Mm-hmm.
So...
Well, they put it together with, it had digital telltale fingerprints from an attack that had happened earlier against South Korea. So that's how they were able to mate them, that they're two similar style. I guess every hacker has their own digital fingerprint that they do, and they can kind of backtrack.
But what does this say going forward? In the United States, we've enjoyed a freedom of speech and freedom of press for a little over 200 years now. This is the first time in my life I can remember that basically being censored. Right. But it's not being censored.
That's the worst part. It's called the chilling effect in First Amendment constitutional law. When people start self-censoring, when they're afraid to publish things, and this has led to a discussion about will the movies now be milquetoast? Will they be afraid to take on controversial issues because studios are worried about software attacks?
Well, were the threats legitimate? I'm guessing they felt they were. It seems a little odd to me that North Korea is just, if they are the ones responsible for the hack, like we're being told.
I think China had a hand in it somehow. I really do.
But my question is take Sony out of the picture, take Paramount, and all of the studios, take the writers, everyone out of the picture. The question now is what does the U.S. federal government do? Because
or what do we not know that they've been doing?
Yeah.
You can rest assured that we sent electronic attacks against them, especially the 27 that were named in an indictment last year in China. We indicted, the U.S. Justice Department indicted 27 Chinese nationals. These are military with the People's Liberation Army, they call it in China, but these are guys that work at this, they have this building that's all they do. They have a full-time army division that is hacking all day long, all day, every day. And last year, I think, was groundbreaking that the Justice Department actually issued warrants against Chinese citizens, the first time ever.
Well, my question now is where the heck is Dennis Rodman? Like, isn't he supposed to be like our
Maybe
ambassador?
Rodman brought it over on a thumb drive, and they just got it into the country that way. I don't know how they did it, but I'm kind of thinking it's very high level. And I mean, I was told this thing was so sophisticated that it could wipe out hard drives, and this is the Stuxnet version. For the people who don't know, Stuxnet was the first militarized computer software malware developed by the Israelis and given to America, and we used it against Iran, against their nuclear centrifuges. And basically the way it worked is it told operators that everything was in the green, everything was working fine, when in actuality it was spinning those centrifuges so fast that they basically melted the bearings on it. So this is the first piece of software that was actually able to damage hardware, so able to damage infrastructure. So what we're seeing here with the South Korean or the North Korean attack is something very similar. That it's able to actually here we have a bunch of digital data that's actually able to make a difference on physical hard drives.
You just geeked out for just a second. So let me bring the bar back down a little bit. But I think what I would like to see, and we'll probably get a response from the White House later today, a little stronger response than what we got yesterday, and what I would like to see, the government is there to protect us. That's like the number one role of the government, not just our lives, the economy, and our rights. And so I would like to see a strong response from the federal government. Let's pump the brakes before we start talking war. But there, I wouldn't be shocked to see some sanctions put out that would cover some of those things. I think it's very interesting. This is coming on the heels of a day where we've talked about sending an ambassador to Cuba this week.
It's amazing. That's groundbreaking. That's the biggest news in the last 10 years.
And that's all being covered up by a Sony hack. So
I think Fidel's on his deathbed. I think that he's finally given Raul, his brother Raul Castro, has always been a little bit more progressive than Fidel. I think he's finally given him the nod. Okay, it's over. The Cold War is over. This is really the last vestige of the Cold War. I mean, Vietnam now is one of our biggest trading partners in Southwest Asia now. They're coming on. Southeast Asia, I should say. I think this is I can't think of another Cold War stalwart country. Probably maybe somewhere in the Balkans, maybe, I don't know, but it seems like Yugoslavia is not Yugoslavia anymore.
Well, the funny thing about this is we're talking about sending somebody to Cuba, and U.S.-Russian relations are as bad now as they've been since the Cold War, right? I mean, I don't imagine that Putin and Obama really have a whole lot of compassion for one another. I think they both got dartboards with each other's faces on them. So,
I mean, but is Putin really mad at America, or is he mad at Europe?
Well, I think he would like us to stay out of it. I think it's a scare tactic. Hey, America, you stay on that side of the ocean this time.
I mean, it's really the European sanctions that have really. I mean, they were Germany's #1 petroleum gas supplier. I mean, it's amazing that Europe took such a firm stance. I was really surprised by that.
The sanctions have choked Russia.
Oh, their ruble is in free fall.
Yeah,
I think it's something. The inflation is, even if it were to stop right now. I heard economists say that they're almost guaranteed to be in recession a year from now. Well, it's terrible.
And that's all.
But he has a high opinion rating at home.
He does, but I think the Russian national opinion is that they've not done anything wrong.
Right, but I mean, this guy is well. I mean, they're stoking him. They're saying, "Oh yeah, he's bringing back the Great Russia," and what they fail to realize, he's dragging them down into the crap.
Yeah, I mean, the question I have on it is we're destined for war in the Ukraine, right? I mean, that's going to happen, right?
Countries that have nukes can't do war. They can't.
Yeah.
It'll be a proxy war maybe, but not a direct war. It can't be a hot war.
Do you see any way that the southern Ukraine, the Russian-friendly areas of Ukraine, become Russian territory?
I do. I see it split in half, and here's why. One of the biggest ports there in the Black Sea region, a lot of people fail to realize that Russia's mostly landlocked during a large part of the year because the ports freeze over in the north, the Baltic, in the northern part, Leningrad, now St. Petersburg. They can't get to market. They can't get a lot of their products to market, so they need the Black Sea to go through that region to get a lot of their petroleum products out to Europe and other export to other countries. So, I think that we have some leverage there. We can say, listen, in order for you to get your ships through the Straits of what's the Bosphorus? What's the one between Hungary and Turkey? Istanbul and
you'll have to do your own geography.
Gosh, but at any rate, there's a choke point there. And it's basically European. It's Europe and Turkey that own that choke point, and we have some leverage there, and that's the point I'm trying to make is that Russia has some exposure because their economy is so rigged to petroleum exports.
All right, let's pump the brakes on international flair for a second, and I'm going to say two words, and I want to see how much you cringe, but. Jeb Bush.
Jeb Bush. Okay, here's my thinking on the Republicans. First of all, I don't think they stand a chance against Hillary if there's a united Democratic front. I think if Elizabeth Warren comes in, then they might have a chance. But I always think that Jeb Bush is better than Mitt Romney. That's really the only two choices for the GOP that I see as being realistic.
So are we really setting ourselves up for a 90s remix?
I think so, because Jeb Bush, a lot of people don't realize this, he is more like HW than he was, Herbert Walker Bush than he was
W.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, there is a chance right now that the presidential ticket on the two main parties in 2016 is Bush-Clinton.
I don't see that happening. I really don't. First of all, Hillary's very centrist, but I don't think she's going to go over to the GOP.
No, I'm saying Bush versus Clinton. We got a 1992 redo up in here. I mean...
Florida's 36 electoral votes, 39, something like that. It's a huge state.
It is.
And I think that's why we're starting to see Marco Rubio and them come out against Cuba, the party of no. I mean, seriously, I was thinking to myself, what would compel you after this news about Cuba for American jobs? If you're about, creating jobs and getting exports, who's going to directly benefit? Agricultural, right? Hogs, pigs, grain. We haven't been able to sell. We got a partner Cuba. Oh man, we're looking at what, 50 million maybe a year in just agricultural exports. Why would you oppose that? And that's what when I saw Marco Rubio coming out and Ted Cruz and even McCain saying these real strident, well, I don't think we should negotiate with trying to perpetuate this Cold War. I'm thinking to myself, why would you do that unless you think, that's we want to curry favor with our Republican people in the Panhandle and Lower Alabama and Florida and get those 30,
little red on the back of their neck.
Yeah.
Well.
Get those 39 electoral votes. Those are important. Those are crucial.
All right, so Time Magazine named their Person of the Year last week, and
the Ebola fighter,
the Ebola healthcare workers.
Yes. Very ballsy job.
After notifying them, of course, of their winning, the Ebola workers offered to come pick up their trophy, and then Time Magazine's like, no, it's in the mail, man.
Give me the digital version.
Yeah, it's in the mail.
You got your iPad. We'll
You want it in a JPEG? How do you want this? But But what do you think about Time Magazine naming it essentially an industry at this point as their Person of the Year?
I think it's incredible because the courage shown by, I mean, we got to think, Liberia, Sierra Leone, Nigeria, you're talking about countries that a lot of people don't fail to know this, but Nigeria is the size of Texas, literally. Huge state. And has all the population of America, but roughly a little bit under. Right now, what are we at? About 300 million, 310 million?
Third largest.
Imagine those amount of people, the size, the population of the United States in Texas. That's what Nigeria is. That's how populous and big it is. People fail to remember that. If that country had, been inundated with Ebola, it would have been a threat to the rest of the world. It would have been like World War Z.
Did you order an Ebola protection suit?
I did not. I feel like if it's our time, then it's our time. I've always been kind of stoic with that kind of deal. I'm not one of these guys that buries gold, and I feel like if it's my time, it's my time. There's really fear. Let me put it that way.
So Joel, this is our first episode, and we've covered a lot of topics quickly here in the Flashpoint. But tell us a little bit about you, your background, and what you bring to the table, other than being a raging liberal.
Well, raging. That's interesting you mentioned that. I didn't realize how liberal I was until I took one of these online tests, and it put me. Oh gosh, what is the most liberal you can be? FDR, maybe? I don't know, but I thought I was kind of centrist. I always thought I was a little left of center, but
he almost tested socialist. Like he was close to communist.
Yeah, and but my background, I have a Bachelor of Arts degree from Missouri State University, and I graduated in 2006, and did a little bit of law school, and got a year under my belt there in Arizona. It's now called Summit Law School or something. When I went, it was called Phoenix School of Law. And I do freelance writing now. I do legal blogs. But I'm a writer. I write. I try to write on the side, and I finished one book. It's a military espionage thriller. I call it Hard Knock. I think it's pretty interesting. And I help people online. I do a lot of work helping people with limited income fight bed bug infestations. And
where can we find that stuff?
Anywhere on YouTube. If you just type in my name, it's Joel Z. Williams, and just type in my name and bed bugs, and you'll find it on Google. Search it. But it's got quite a following. I teach people how to make non-toxic bed bug traps using yeast, sugar, and water. Different techniques on how to fight bed bugs, and amazingly developed quite a following online. That's what I like. I mean, that's one of my. And I build model aircraft. I'm a former Air Force veteran, and
I think you're still an Air Force veteran.
Former Air Force, I'm a veteran, but I spent 4 years in the Air Force enlisted, and that's basically me in a nutshell. And I like to argue with my friend Chase, and we argue about politics all the time. I don't know if arguing is a good word. Maybe we shoot around competing theories.
Which we won't dive in too deep on some of that stuff. But the main reason we're doing this today is we're located here in Missouri, about 2.5 hours southwest of Ferguson, Missouri, which is for the better part of 3 months been the focal point of the world when it comes to human and civil rights.
I mean, it even affected Hong Kong. The protests going on in Hong Kong.
And so, me and Joel, we have dissected everything.
Still haven't found those shell casings.
Dissected everything from the standpoint of to indict or not indict, even some civil discussions on potential lawsuits and stuff like that. And so we're going to dive into that for just a minute. I know that everyone's tired of hearing about it, but it's a topic that both of us we have our own passions. I think I speak for Joel in saying that we're saddened by the death first and foremost, but this is a country of law, and I think we both respect the process and what took place in the grand jury. Although I think we both also agree that it's an outdated method and should probably go away.
Right. We're the only country that still uses it.
But Joe, I'm gonna pass it off to you here and let you just kind of jump in on it.
Okay. On my theory, I'm got some skin in the game. I'm half African American, half Caucasian.
Literally skin in the game.
Yeah. And so I can see it from both aspects. And I think what is lost here we just found out recently that Chris Koster, who is the Attorney General of Missouri, has now filed lawsuits against 13 of the municipalities. I guess there's 90 total sub-municipalities around Ferguson. I'm sorry, St. Louis. Ferguson happened to be one of them. But Chris Koster apparently has sued 13 of them for overcharging on court fees. That apparently the state constitution only allows for a certain amount of court fees. And there was an article written in the Washington Post where I can't remember, I think it was Rabst, I can't remember the author's name, but he did a study of the amount of income those municipalities were making from traffic tickets and parking. They call them crimes of poverty. Not having insurance on your car, not having your car properly registered. And what came out of that, what I took from it, was here you had a bunch of smaller municipalities that were making a lot of money, generating a lot of revenue from poor people, from harassing citizens. And when you have that type of in-your-face policing, not to say that writing somebody a traffic ticket is incorrect, but I mean littering, drinking a beer on the street, these type of tickets, it creates a certain level of animosity between the population that feels they're no longer being protected, but they're being harassed. And I think that this case, while Michael Brown, of course, was no saint, and I always want to make that clear that he should not be considered the Rosa Parks of this movement. I think what the people in Ferguson, the reason why they were so angry, and the reason this has to be taken in context, and I think a lot of times it's lost.
And I can respect the idea that maybe this is a group of people that have been profiled and have been held down by the man or whatever you want to say. But I don't think that Darren Wilson should serve the sentence for all of that.
Right. I'm just trying to give an explanation. A lot of people say, well, why are they burning down their community? Why are, they don't understand that this is not their community to them in a lot of points.
Well, I mean,
it's been taken away.
You and I have had, one, very different upbringings, different backgrounds, and I had several conversations in the past about the benefits that were bestowed upon me throughout my upbringing compared to some of the things you taught and you were taught and you learned. And I come from a small town in southwestern Missouri where everybody knows one another and everybody's grandpa owns a business.
A lot of advantages.
And so like the idea of burning a business to the ground to me is very foreign. It's actually something I can't comprehend. Mm-hmm. It's sad to me because I think about some of the businesses that were in this impoverished area, where that same business owner could probably open that same business in a different community and thrive or do better than they were doing there. But, this is a business that supports employees.
While you're on that train of thought, let me tell you about something I experienced in Los Angeles and in Phoenix. It's known as the black tax. And in these communities, when you go in to use your ATM card, if it's a debit card or something, they'll charge you an additional amount. So whatever you... And the merchant will say, well, I'm just passing on. I get Visa and MasterCard charges me this, so I'm passing on to my consumers. And so if you use make a $5 purchase, they'll tack on 25 cents to cover it, right? You don't see that in more wealthier or affluent communities. And markups like in grocery stores. You'll go to buy a loaf of bread. It'll cost 25, 10, 15 cents more in an inner city grocery store. That creates a cumulative hatred of those shopkeepers. And I think that's something that is lost on people who don't experience that firsthand.
Well, and again, I can't speak to any of that. I've never experienced that. For the most part, I've lived all my life within 20 miles of where I was born.
And when you go into a consumer's market or somewhere, Hy-Vee, and you go to swipe your card, you don't. It would be, if they were to tell you we're going to charge you 25 cents more per transaction, you would turn a spin on your heel and walk out, right?
Well, and like, you know, not to throw a business under the bus, but Whistler's in downtown Springfield is that way. And but this is a business that you know, maybe they need that to survive. You know, there's another business here locally that I know they in transactions under a certain amount they do charge you I think they call it a convenience fee. You know, convenient my butt.
Yeah.
But you know, at the same time, I'm conveniently not requiring them to go to the bank.
You'll vote with your feet,
Yeah.
but a lot of these people don't have that choice.
So, but that's not something I can speak to. But what I would like to talk about is, you know, we've talked a little bit already today, me and you, about eyewitnesses and how eyewitness testimony is largely just unreliable at best.
It really is.
And this is an instance, you know, prosecutor, he made his big statement and came after the media and social media, you know, the night of the announcement of no true bill.
Yeah.
You know, he came
St. Louis
out.
County prosecutor.
He came out saying that he was blamed the media for a lot of the issues and outrage that had happened, and I don't know that that's necessarily true, but this is definitely the first time I can remember, you know, in my lifetime, there being such widespread opinion of what happened immediately, and then coming back, the physical evidence coming back later, basically saying none of that was true.
Right.
You know,
right.
You know, we've talked about this hands up, don't shoot movement, and the physical evidence doesn't support that he had his hands up. Of course, none of us were there. Darren Wilson's the only person on this earth that truly knows what happened that day.
Right.
And I wasn't there. But on the same breath, on that same thought, I respect the grand jury coming forth and deliberating the case and determining no true bill. You and I have a better understanding of law than most with our backgrounds. And so I think we both know that if the grand jury couldn't find enough info to prosecute, it'd been tough to convince.
It's the prosecutor's show, and if he doesn't want to get a true bill, he certainly can make. He's the one that controls what evidence gets looked at.
It's true, but it is my understanding he brought forth witnesses on both sides, several of each.
I've always wanted to know what they saw. Okay, look, let me back up a little bit. I have difficulty believing that Officer Wilson did not shoot at Michael Brown as he was moving away. I think that's where Chase and I fundamentally
and that's where we mentioned earlier the shell casings. I think that'd go a long way in alleviating if they were in a circle within 5 foot of one another. I think that your opinion of that would probably change quickly. But we don't I'm saying if it's a cluster, if it's one cluster rather than if he was pursuing him shooting, I think you'd have a shell here, a shell there, a shell casing here, or there.
Okay, my point is it doesn't matter if he is stationary. What matters is if Mike Brown's moving away.
Well, I mean, and maybe that's all that matters. But we know that we know the first shot was fired
in the vehicle.
We know the first shot out of the vehicle was fired when Michael Brown was 30 feet away by other testimonies. And we know that the final shot was fired when he was 8 foot away. So,
have we established that? I didn't know
that was I think the in quotations here kill shot. Okay. The final shot, the one that is determined to have killed him was 8 foot away. That was, and that's based on all kinds of math and geometry and forensic knowledge that you or I don't have access to or really understand it. I do understand the spotting.
My point, though, if you're in a jury, back up on the grand jury process, so there has to be a preponderance of evidence. That's in legal terms, that's 51%, right? So you have to think it's more than likely to have happened to require going to trial to put forth a true bill. I think that if I had known that the officer was shooting at a man who was fleeing him, I think that would have tipped my decision if I was on the jury. I think I would want to go. Okay, let's have a trial. Let's figure this out. You know, and that's what's bothering me.
Well, I think, at least for me, and we've talked about this, is whether or not was he pursuing him? Was Michael Brown running away?
That's the sticking issue.
We do know that he was not shot in the back.
Right. All 9 shots are to the front of the body.
All of the entry wounds are frontal.
But we're still missing 2 shots. There's still 2 shots that are unaccounted for.
Can we take a minute and applaud for judicious marksmanship?
My gosh! A moving target, man. And with that adrenaline pumping, you just got punched in the face. You know, that's amazing that he landed 9 shots out of what 13 total?
Do you think he's ever ridden a stealth helicopter in? But no, seriously. Again, it's a tragedy all the way around, ranging from the loss of life to what we saw play out on all of our television sets over the next.
Was it 30
4 months? Yeah, I mean, not only were lives affected, the Brown family's lives, and Officer Wilson's life, and I mean, in all likelihood,
he'll have to live with that.
You know, that's not whether he was just in doing it or not. He's going to have to close his eyes at night, knowing that someone did die at his hand, and that can't be easy.
Especially watching the brains come out and all that. Man, I wouldn't want that.
I don't know that we can say brains, but the brains came out. But
it's pretty graphic.
What if you were the prosecutor? You know, you talked about how the grand jury is the prosecutor's show. If you were the prosecutor,
yeah. If I didn't want to get a conviction or a trial, if I didn't want to,
based on the evidence, not your thoughts.
No. I'm
based on the evidence you know.
If I wanted to game it, if I'm the prosecutor and I wanted to make it where they wouldn't take it to trial, I would show a lot of witnesses conflicting. I would show evidence of a lot of things that didn't match the testimony, or I'm sorry, the testimony that didn't match the evidence. I would cast that doubt into the jury pool that these people don't really know what they're talking. I can't really believe them. That's what I would do.
Now, and who knows? But does the prosecutor have does he have a duty?
He has a moral obligation
to supply all the evidence. Correct.
I don't know. I'm trying to remember that they take an oath to uphold the law.
So if the prosecutor in this instance truly believed no crime had been committed, then his moral obligation would have been to
dismiss or
to supply the grand jury with the information that supported that.
He wouldn't have convened a grand jury.
Yeah.
Wouldn't have called.
And there was lots of call immediately for the governor, Jay Nixon, to appoint a special prosecutor.
I would have liked to saw that.
I think, was there grounds for it? Maybe.
I think so.
Because
you're too close. And not just to make sure, that you got it right.
I think his background. You know, his father was a police officer.
Jay Nixon?
No, the prosecutor's
father
was a police officer who was killed by a black man.
Oh, that's right. I remember hearing that.
And so the idea
it's a little too close. Don't you think?
It is. For me, I would not have had a problem with a special prosecutor. I, however, believe also, I kind of think that this prosecutor didn't ever feel like there was enough to prosecute to begin with. And I don't know if you get a special prosecutor, if you even get a grand jury.
I sure would like to see what convinced because there's always, in every decision, there's always that one component that shook that made the difference, I'd like to see what it was. I'd like to talk to them and say, what was it that convinced you for sure?
Well, I think, and back to what we talked about with the media, all the outrage and all of the talk immediately after, the first few days after this, the incident, was how he was shot in the back, and hands up, don't shoot, was surrendering. And then the physical evidence comes out and basically just discredits all of those that were saying he was shot in the back.
Yeah.
And one of the things I thought was interesting is for me, you call me a gamer. The family, they brought in their own expert to do an autopsy.
Yeah.
The state didn't release the autopsy until after the grand jury had made a decision.
Yeah.
Which is standard.
Really? Is that right?
In I think anytime somebody dies, that's standard. I mean, first off, they have no right to release it while it's an open investigation.
That's right.
But one of the things I thought was interesting is that the family brought in their own expert, and then the second his findings released, he's like, no, he was shot in the front. It was. I'm always like the gamer. I'm like, if I'm the family, of course I'm bringing in my own expert. I need to coach some people up. And I'm not saying that's what occurred in this instance, but suddenly Dorian Johnson, the fugitive, Michael Brown's friend that was with him that day, his story changed immediately. We were seeing him on every talk show. He got his 15 minutes of fame quickly.
You still can't explain away the construction workers.
And I cannot, but I do know after discussing with you and your example from when you were in law school is eyewitness testimony is largely unreliable.
Even immediate.
And you were asking for what was the thing? What was the one thing that really turned it? I wonder if it wasn't the physical evidence.
The shell casing?
I wonder if it wasn't the location of the body, the distance the body was from the muzzle, which is determined by spotting through unburnt and burnt gunpowder and all kinds of stuff that me or you don't really understand, but the experts do. But I think, for me at least, I think it's interesting to think that maybe Officer Wilson, or at least in the mind of the grand jury, acted justly, and did not commit a crime. I know you disagree.
I want to go on record as saying that the methodology that he used to approach these men is contrary to what I've seen a police expert that trains police officers tell his recruits all the time. If you're going to confront a suspect on foot and you're in your car, you do not talk to them through your window because you're putting yourself at a distinct disadvantage. What you do is you back that vehicle a distance away, you open your door, and you use that door as a shield between you and them, and then you talk to them while you're on foot.
And who knows? You may very well be right. I know St. Louis, the police departments came out and said that he basically acted in concordance with what their operating policy is. But what I would want to know, and what I still want to know, as far as all this is concerned, who made the call that day? As we're watching the video here, it was taken afterwards, and
Black Canseco, they call him.
Black Canseco, they call him. He says.
That's his name.
Who made the decision that day?
To steal the cigarillos.
Yes.
To put this whole thing in motion. That's why I thought it was so important to talk about the context. Is Darren Wilson did not know that these guys had robbed that store until halfway after his initial confrontation with them. And people who have never lived in these communities, they think that Officer Wilson drove by them and said, "Excuse me, gentlemen, will you please get to the curb?" That's probably not what happened. And he probably was a jerk about the way he confronted them. And that's why I think it's so important to understand the context. Now, is that to say that I'm justifying Michael Brown's strong arm robbing this convenience store clerk? No, I'm not saying that. But I think you got to take it into context.
What? You don't think he was that polite?
Not at all. I wish I could say what I really think he said, but I know this is not for polite company.
I don't know what he said.
I have a hard time believing he said, "Okay, get back on the curb." I think he said probably used a couple choice words there.
I think you're probably right, but again, you're caught up in the context of it. I'm not. I guess I come from a belief that you don't want to get shot by a cop. Don't break the law. You don't. Chris Rock did that video years ago. How not to get beat up by the police.
Yeah.
I think about all the five.
Is that where we are though? Is that where we are? If we don't want to get shot, we have to not break any crime. Is that the
No.
Can we get tased?
Shooting needs to be the last resort.
Can we get a pepper spray or,
Yes.
or something before? I mean, do you need to be shot 9 times
No.
for not getting onto the curb?
No, you do not. But Joel, we talked to the problem. This is a twofold problem. It's because one, there's no understanding between the two communities here. The police community,
Why didn't you have a taser?
is my understanding, their department does not issue one.
Why? What's the idea behind that?
Well, as you mentioned, it's an impoverished area. They're needing to make their money off of other people. Maybe they couldn't afford them.
You don't think they could apply for federal grants for that?
Maybe they could. Joel,
They got money to do emergency roadside
If-
DUI checks, but they don't have money for that. They have money to pay their officers overtime to catch people with their tags not being registered, ostensibly looking for drunk drivers.
hey, you're 100% right on all of those things. But in the end, did he have to steal cigars?
Did he have to get shot 9 times for not getting in the road?
Well, we're not
being in the road?
No, he didn't. No, he did not need to be shot 9 times for, and I don't think he was shot 9 times for being in the road. I think he was shot because
Wow.
he was shot because he assaulted a police officer and reached for his gun.
Yeah, or that whole reaching thing. I think if you see somebody pulling a gun up to you, your first reaction is going to be trying to move it away from your face.
My first reaction will be don't. I'm done. I'm out. Again, I'm not there. I haven't been oppressed for the better part of my life, or all of my life, or
I don't know if oppression is the right word. Certainly, I mean, what's the percentage of Caucasian officers on it? It's like 80-90%?
it's close to 89%. Yeah.
And so when you see them, you think, oh, they're going to try to write me a ticket. Oh, what is it now? They're going to search me for warrants, or oh my God, what? You don't see them as a good thing.
Well, and I can honestly say this. I don't really like cops. I'm good friends with the sheriff here in the county. But I've been on the phone with you when I got pulled over.
Yeah, I remember that.
And,
see, that's a classic example. That's white privilege right there. I would have went to jail doing what you did. This guy, tell him the story.
I got pulled over back, I think it was back in the summer.
And was indignant.
I drive a 4-wheel drive truck that I grew up on a farm, use it to haul cattle.
That's pure white privilege. I'm glad you brought that up. This is a classic example.
In the state of Missouri, when a truck is used for that purpose, you're not required to have a license plate on the rear of the vehicle. And I was in Springfield, the metropolitan area here in southwest Missouri, and got pulled over. And the cop wanted to issue me a ticket for having no plate on the back of the truck. I don't know if indignant was the word I would use, but I politely reminded him that I was not required to, by the way the truck was licensed, and encouraged he look at the license plate on the front of the truck. And maybe this was an instance like you're speaking of, looking for a minor issue, a no tag or expired tag to find something more.
Yes.
He found something more that day. He found a very agitated me for him wasting my time. But at no point did I feel like I had the right to assault a police officer. So how do you get? I mean, is it take years of that?
That and the door. I think that for people who are familiar with this case, there's some disagreement as to when Officer Wilson attempted to get out of his vehicle. The witness that was with Michael Brown, Darian, I can't pronounce his name.
Dorian Johnson.
Dorian Johnson says that
literally one of the least credible witnesses in the history of the world.
Says that the officer tried to strike him with. It was his belief that the officer was making a very aggressive push of the. I guess it's an SUV. It was a Tahoe.
I'm not sure.
A big SUV,
model,
so a heavy door. You can assume that it was a fairly like a truck door, and I don't know if he said, but he intimated that the officer was kind of like trying to hit them with that door after they refused or walked away from him and didn't comply with his order. So I guess long story short, I think that's what really started the physical altercation. I don't know if it was the.
What point in
how would you react, Chase? If you got pulled over and let's say the cop would have you were trying to get out of your truck and he pushed you back with.
I think just because.
How would you have? Would you have?
He's a cop, so I think. I think.
What if he punched you?
I don't think it would. I don't think it would matter for me.
So nothing he would have done would.
Because I know he has a gun.
Huh.
I mean, I know my remedy is not to hit him back. And I mean, think about it. We've.
That's because you respect that position, right?
And that's where.
Or is it fear?
I know. I think it's maybe both, but I think it's largely respect. And I also know, and this is back to the differences in upbringing and stuff. Is my remedy is not to hit him.
Yeah.
My remedy is to get the cuffs put on and go to jail and worry about it later.
Mm-hmm.
You know, if in fact he has been overly aggressive, I have a remedy.
That's kind of a weird. It's almost cyclical now. That it's like a snake eating its tail. Do you think black people now feel, after what they've seen Darren Wilson do and get away with it, do you think that they trust their police more now? I guess what you're saying is you believe in the legal system that it's going to work to your advantage. No,
I don't believe the legal system works for someone's advantage.
Okay, well, I guess what I'm trying to say is people in that Canfield Street neighborhood, do you think they feel like they should just go ahead and let themselves be arrested and trust the system?
No, because I also believe they feel like this kid was murdered in cold blood. And I don't believe that in the slightest.
No, I don't. You say cold blood. I don't think. I think it was a hot blooded thing. I think that he was punched in the face. He was sitting in his vehicle. He told these kids really vulgarly to get back on the curb. They disobeyed a direct order. He was offended by it. He rolled down his window and cussed at him some more, and one of them punched him in the face. And I think he went, oh, how dare you, and chased, I think that's how it started.
I guess my deal is again,
you don't respect my position, and I'm going to make you respect me. It's like,
then
when they ran, I think it was like a dog. You run from a dog, it just instinctively chased you.
And maybe instincts did take over. And I know you believe he was firing.
I think he was shooting at him as he was fleeing. I really do.
Now, you and we went over what the witnesses said.
Right.
No witness claimed he fired.
That's not exactly correct. There was Darren Johnson said he and then the other guy, the guy with the.
Darren Johnson also swears up and down.
You don't believe anything he said.
I don't.
But I believe he ran behind that car for a reason. Well, I think he got behind that car for a reason.
He lost all credibility with me.
Why would you run behind a car and crouch if somebody was not shooting?
Why, after it has been proven he wasn't shot in the back, do you continue to claim he was shot in the back?
I don't say he was shot in the back. I say that officer shot at him as he was fleeing.
But that's not what Dorian Johnson says.
There's still 2 rounds that we haven't accounted for.
There are 2 rounds that we haven't accounted for. Now, I don't know. You say the gun was empty, correct?
I thought we saw that on the New York Times one.
I did not see it.
So there's 14. It's a 6-hour P229.
And we don't know that he had one in the stack. We don't know that.
I don't. And it would probably be foolish not to, right? If you're a police officer.
Yeah. I mean,
it would probably be imprudent not to have that.
I think it depends. I mean, I don't ever. I'm a gun-toting, red-blooded, red-necked American, and I don't ever put one in the stack. And it's more of a, for me, it makes me feel safer when handling that weapon if I know that I don't have a way to fire that weapon until I physically at the moment put a round in the chamber. So I think that would be up to each officer.
I wonder what the St. Louis, I wonder what their policy is.
That would be interesting to see what their policy would be on
holstered weapons.
Yeah.
I would imagine they would have one in the pipe. Why wouldn't you?
I imagine there's one in the pipe. Yeah. You have to, and when we're talking about the 13+1, you have to physically load a clip, cycle a shell,
and there was that thing
and then
where
load a clip again.
I read the testimony, Darren Wilson's testimony, and he said that he couldn't get it. He couldn't figure out why he wasn't firing. When they were wrestling for the gun, he couldn't figure out why. And then he cocked it. He what do you call that?
Okay, so that would imply 13.
I know, right? That's what I thought too. I was really intrigued by that when he said he.
And that would put us down to 1 bullet, correct? At that
missing, that unaccounted for.
And the one thing we've talked about twice now is, I think the shell casings really tell us a lot.
But it doesn't matter if he's standing still and the guy's running.
Because
the shell case is still going to be. You know what I'm saying?
To me, it matters because, we have audio of 10 rounds from the glide recording.
That's what you say.
That's what the expert says.
I counted.
Okay, if you count 11, still, if you count 11, then you have no unaccounted rounds.
Are we? Is it been established there was 2 fired in the vehicle?
It was. That was in the report that we just looked at. That was in the evidence that was
I thought there was only
presented.
1.
The New York Times article we just looked at, the report
Okay.
had 2 in the vehicle.
Okay.
And so if you're saying 11 in that glide, which the expert says 10,
Yeah.
I don't hear 11. At any point, I don't hear 11.
You counted 10.
I counted 10 twice.
Okay. We listened to this thing probably. Give him some context, Chase. There's
a young man who was recording a video message to someone, we don't know who, and it captured the second round of shooting. We know 2 rounds were fired in the car, and we know an additional, according to this, 10 rounds on the glide app, but we don't know for sure one way or another if it's 10 or 11. If it was 11, then that's the end of the clip.
Yeah,
The gun's empty.
yeah.
And we no longer have unaccounted for rounds.
Right.
If it's 10,
But okay, and here's my deal: is 9? We know for a fact that 9 rounds hit Michael Brown.
Correct.
Right. We don't know where those other ones are. Right.
well, we know where 2 of them are.
Well, in the
car.
vehicle.
So we've got two rounds then that could be in trees or in houses or Lord knows, and they probably are accounted for. And I don't even see it.
Yeah, we haven't done that research yet. We're still looking for that. We got to try to figure out where.
In all likelihood, they're in a building, the side of a building or a
Maybe,
tree.
or maybe they just ran out of.
In the dirt.
Yeah, maybe they just stopped
But-
after a mile.
But I don't know. I mean, to me, I'm just impressed at his ability to put
You got to give it to that
9 of 11 on target.
They call it fat fingers when you
Because it was rapid succession. This was not
you get that adrenaline pumping and your mechanical your motor skills diminish. They call it becoming fat fingered, and you got to imagine this is a guy that just got punched in the face by I think Michael Brown's 6'5", 290, something like that, and
Hulk Hogan.
Well, this is what this guy says, that he felt like a 5-year-old child grabbing Hulk Hogan's wrist. I remember thinking, boy, his attorneys coached him up well. I really don't think a police officer that serves in that area is frightened like that. I really have a hard time believing that.
I believe he was scared.
Oh,
After he get punched in that instance, I believe he was scared. I don't know if he should have been fearing for his life necessarily, but then again, if his testimony is true and